It's the Hokie House pregame show on your local radio station. We are ESPN Blacksburg. Andrew Alex here, live from a packed Hokie House. Just kidding. It is not open for another couple of hours, but we are here, and you should be here today as well. Joined by the usual suspects and a new guest. We got Dave Perks, voice of the fan. Dave, how you doing, buddy?
Good, man. How are you?
Doing well. Tim Thomas, CEO, founder, president, and head honcho of the TechLunchFail.com. Timmy, how are you, man?
Doing great, Andrew.
And pleased to be joined by Virginia Tech offensive lineman, former offensive lineman, John McLaughlin. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, man. Excited to be here. Doing well.
Awesome. So I want to get started. Oh, and of course, we are joined remotely by Mike McDaniel. Mike, what's going on, dog?
What's up, guys? What's going on?
Not much. Mike, we are live on ESPN Blacksburg. We are also live on the Voice of College Football streaming service. You can see Mike McDaniel eating a banana there if you want to watch the live stream. But, gentlemen, I want to turn to what happened last week in Morgantown. Obviously, a rivalry game, very hyped up, years in the making. And the first 2 minutes were very draining for Virginia Tech fans and the Virginia Tech faithful. Right away, off the bat, within the first 2 drives, West Virginia scores on the Letty Brown 70-some-odd-yard touchdown, and then all it took was 2 plays on the second drive after Virginia Tech went 3 and out. Just like that, the Hokies down 14-0. Dave, for you as a fan, and we know that from your era at Tech, West Virginia is probably the most hated rival, if not top 3.
It's up there. I remember one of the first Thursday night games that we had here was against West Virginia my senior year. And it was insane. I mean, just the environment, all of it. And, whether you're in Blacksburg or in Morgantown, when those 2 teams play, it's a big day.
Indeed. John, I want to ask you, from a player perspective, when the defense comes out and just, lets up a couple big plays like that, is that coming out cold? Is that a bad game plan? How would you, summarize what happened there?
Well, I would say it is coming out cold. I didn't see that same energy that they brought in North Carolina. And I also would say that I want to see how the offense respond, and they just didn't do that. So it is coming out cold. And I wish they would have had the same fire they did coming out in North Carolina.
Tim, defensively, that 75-yard run play, what happened there?
A lot didn't go right.
And a lot and not much.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot that went right there. I mean, you had 2 guys trying to fill holes on the second level, and they kind of got caught in the wrong holes. Third level was gone. And, a nice little clear out there. And just, one of those gut punches where West Virginia just came out slamming you in your face. And, the rest is history.
The rest is indeed history. Mike, a slow start for the offense in the first half. In the second half, they get it going a little bit. Did you see any adjustments made there?
Yeah, but I mean, more than anything for Virginia Tech's offense in the second half, it was more about just being a bit more consistent, blocking a little bit better, finding the holes a little bit better in the running game, protecting Burmeister. Burmeister not coming off of his first read and tucking and running immediately. That was a big part of it as well. We saw a lot of that in the first half. And really, quite honestly, I mean, we know Burmeister's a bit limited in the passing game. But last Saturday, I thought, was the first time we really saw Burmeister in a spot where he was immediately coming off of his first read and tucking and running. I mean, his legs are definitely a weapon. I would like to see him run it a little bit more, but it's that catch-22 where you don't want to see him get hurt. So I get it. But I think what you get with Burmeister is a guy who's capable of escaping the pocket and making plays happen. We saw that on that 3rd and 23 play, at their 3rd and 24, whatever it was in the third quarter. So he can definitely make plays with his legs in the running game, but I'd like to see him get back to going through his progressions. And then once he doesn't, gets through a second or third read, he can take off and run. But a lot of that's dependent on the offensive line holding their blocks too, which was a problem for much of the first half anyway last Saturday.
Tim, compared to where you were going into the season, based on what we've seen in the North Carolina game as well as the West Virginia game, where's your stock on Braxton Burmeister right now?
I think it's slightly up from what I thought. Yeah, I think he's not as limited of a passer as I thought, but he is still a limited passer. I mean, he just doesn't have the accuracy, especially down the field consistently. That's just the reality. Now, is he a little better than I thought? Absolutely. Does Tech need to push the ball a little more down the field? Yes, because you have the receivers who you can trust to make plays. I mean, there have been some people saying this and that. I think you look at the play of Robinson and Turner and Caleb Smith so far, and it's been quite good. I think if you really look at it, I think there's just limitations elsewhere that aren't really, including at the quarterback position, that aren't really allowing those guys to be as productive per se as they could be with a different quarterback, maybe a guy who we know of who's right now throwing touchdowns down in Knoxville. So, I think it's slightly up. It's not much different. He is what he is. He's limited as a passer, which means you have to find ways to use him in the running game. And yes, we've all heard the rumors he might be hurt or something. If he's hurt, that seems like rather significant news. But with a guy like Burmeister, you got to find creative ways in the running game as well. You got to actually let him be a running threat in tradition, not just scrambling, but in running plays, because we saw it last week. It seemed like there was a lack of the read options and the jet sweep read options and everything else. It seemed like there was a serious lack of those things, those misdirection. And that, on a day where the offensive line, you lose a guy like Silas Jancy, John, you might disagree with me on this. And if you do, I'm going to listen to you on it. But, when you get those misdirections and those read options, instead of a defense that's going to play downhill when they think it's just one guy running, they can't necessarily jump on either direction because they got to let the play develop a little.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. To your point with Burmeister, we just haven't seen enough, I will say.
Yeah.
We just need to open up that playbook a little bit because we want to see that. We want to see those big plays downfield. We want to see what that arm actually can do, what we all heard this offseason, with the coaches raving about, his throwing ability. So I agree with that. And then it did take a big hit when Silas went out. But it is next man up mentality when a guy goes down in a football game. And all those guys have experience. So very disappointing to see them, with 6 sacks, not being able to protect them. I just want to see more.
Yeah, John, I'll ask you this. Through 3 weeks here, we knew we lost a lot in the offensive line when we lost Christian Darrisaw, obviously Doug Nestor transfers. North Carolina, they look pretty good. West Virginia, a little bit more of a shaky performance there. I mean, this was a game that was certainly billed to be a battle in the trenches. Virginia Tech's defensive line versus West Virginia's offensive line and vice versa. In that battle between West Virginia's defense and Virginia Tech's offense, West Virginia's D-line definitively the winner. How would you rate Virginia Tech's offensive line performance and what improvements could be made there?
Yeah, so like my first point, I don't think we were I don't think we knew what West Virginia was bringing. I don't think our preparation obviously wasn't good enough in the first half. And I think this offensive line, they have a challenge, up to the season because we don't know, North Carolina might be in a fluke. We want to see more from their offensive line. So I will say I'm gonna rate them probably like a C-, honestly. They picked it up in the second half, but the first half you got to come out swinging as offensive line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Mike, Silas Jancy's injury potentially an issue for today. And I'm the one who've been on the radio, on podcasts all week saying, give the guy some rest. If there's anything there, you have Richmond and you had the bye week to get right before Notre Dame. It's a very important player on this team. How do you presume the offensive line is going to be shaped out today in terms of personnel, in terms of the permutations in which they use them?
Yeah, there was some stuff out there on the message board suggesting that we might be seeing some Lacita Smith at left tackle with Luke Tenuta bumped over to right tackle and then inserting Johnny Jordan into the starting lineup at center and having Hoffman at left guard and Caden Moore at right guard. That would be an interesting alignment, and it would be a lot different from what we've seen, obviously, through the first 3 games. Richmond's got a pretty good defensive front, but I think if you're going to try anything, from an alignment standpoint, I think you do that today before you go into a bye week and get into ACC play where you can reassess, see where everybody's health is at, and see what you got.
Indeed. Tim, Amari Barno, in the first game, absolutely fantastic. Since then, he has yet to record a stat. You mentioned to me the other day, Pro Football Focus likes what he's done in these 2 games. But again, coming off that big performance against North Carolina, we kind of figured that might be a week in, week out occurrence. What's happening here? Are teams just scheming around him? Are they saying, beat us with someone else?
It's odd. You have to think, it's got to be part of it. I mean, that's what I would do as a defensive coordinator. I mean, this Tech defensive line looks quite good, but Barno is another level, and you have to find a way. All right, try to make other guys beat you before Amari Barno is going to beat you. Yeah, and I mean, you look at the Pro Football Focus. Obviously, you'd have to dive in a little more because it's a good data point. But I mean, it looked good against West Virginia, their numbers at least. But you know, you need a little more from Barno. You need those big plays. You saw it against North Carolina, those big situational plays. You know, I think as we get into the season, we see more mobile quarterbacks. You're going to see Barno's versatility become more valuable. I think ahead to some of the big games later on the schedule against Miami and Virginia, guys like De'Ara King and Brennan Armstrong, you know, where you could use that athletic guy who can kind of be that roving guy. Same thing with Tywan Garbett. Those defensive, I think that's going to be beneficial down the road. But you need a little more production in the short term, especially with Notre Dame coming up in a couple weeks. You know, today isn't a big worry per se. You know, because it is a Richmond team that, is at the bottom of the top 25 in FCS and, you know, is 2-1 on the season. So it's not a big worry, but, you know, you need some more production from Barno in the stat sheet and not just in the Pro Football Focus sides.
Dave, the West Virginia game as a whole, you know, you go on Twitter and you see people losing their minds, to which I respond, yes, it was a winnable game. The situational play calling at the end was not fantastic by any stretch of the imagination, especially in the red zone. But if you told most of this fan base you're going into Richmond 2-1 going into the season, I feel like most people would have taken that. Where are you right now on this team? Have you lost a lot of faith in them because of this West Virginia loss? Are you taking it game by game? How are you assessing this as a guy that's been following the program for the better part of 30 years, 40 years?
Yeah. So, this year is 30 years since my freshman year, actually. So if you had told me, first of all, that we were going to be 2-1, I think the question would have been, okay, was that UNC that we lost to, or was that West Virginia? Certainly hope that it wouldn't have been Middle Tennessee State, but there is some maybe flexibility on where we might have thought that loss was going to be. But I think for me, what I've learned over the last 5 or 6 years as a fan is, unfortunately, it's, plan for the worst and hope for the best. There's no surprises anymore with this team. I don't think it's not. I think it's one of those things where anything can happen, and it often does, and not always to our benefit. And so, the only thing that's been consistent is inconsistency. So you let them get you up high and happy about things, assuming that maybe we're going to start rolling along, and then you come out and like John said early on, cold, no energy. I mean, I've never played at that level, but I do have to wonder how it is that you can't get up for a game like that and come out flat-footed and let them surprise you. I mean, I know West Virginia is hadn't been doing a lot with a run coming into that game, but I mean, always be ready for the surprise, right? And they didn't do it. They weren't hyped. They weren't ready to go. And honestly, I've come to expect that once or twice a year now. And it's unfortunate, but that's kind of the status of, I think, where things are. And then everything, blows up on Twitter, like you said, and we all have something to talk about for a week, but nothing great.
Indeed. Well, hopefully they can get up for the Richmond game today. We'll preview that next. It's the Hokie House pregame show on your local radio station. We are ESPN Blacksburg.
Bring you sports talk with personality. NHL, NBA, NFL, and MLB. ESPN Blacksburg, 93.1, 810, 97.1, and online at ESPNBlacksburg.com. And they all planned out for you. So grab a pen and paper and write this down. We're going to meet up about 4 hours before kickoff at Hokie. Actually, volunteer in the technical. Their friendly staff will take care of all of our food and drinks. So we can find some time. Then we'll head over to Lane Stadium with their bellies full of the cheer. And after the game, we're going to want to celebrate. And all the cheer and yelling and excitement, we're going to be hungry and thirsty again. So after the game, let's head back to Hokie. Here's the deal. You're going to find lots of things on their menu that you want to tailgate party, but just couldn't eat. So for round 2, let's celebrate the Hokie's victory with the best victory party in all of Blacksburg.
First half, second half,
Hokie
last 4 plays.
If you just want to go home and chill after the game, Hokie House can
it was definitely heartbreaking to see. To me, when they was beating our ass, it was just like, all right.
Main Street in Blacksburg.
But when we came back and had some fight, and just
Yeah, well, it was one of those things where it's like, don't do the math. Just don't do the math. Like, don't do the math and then force the ball on interception. All but one of the people were like, we're all crazy. And one guy's like,
dedicated to supporting payroll.
Look, I get that, but also like, I'm now in the hype train now, so derail me and then force.
Solutions.
So I think they hurt more that
Call us today at 540.
The defense, the defense in the second half, though, giving up only 3 points. They kicked it in gear. I give Justin Hamilton
has taught us the importance of living or working in an atmosphere
their
of
staff
love.
is good.
Budget
There's a
Blinds
lot of places out there, too,
specialize
like
in
that
making the
touchdown
ambiance
before
fit
half,
your
just
lifestyle.
field
Whether you're
goals,
looking
just
for
like-
blinds,
Yeah, you make that
shutters,
field goal.
shades, drapery, or
It's a
film,
3-point game drive now that you can at
Make
least
sure
kick a
they
field
hit that
goal.
always.
Yeah.
Those places
throughout the
begin, so.
process to find the solution
It's
that
heartbreaking
fits
for
your
sure.
needs. Contact us today to schedule your free consultation. Check us out online, budgetblinds.com/Salem.
For some reason, man, being ranked early is not.
Bugs sending your anxiety into overtime. This is Jay
For some
Sutter,
reason.
Hokie alum and branch manager of Pest Management Services.
Carolina.
As a 32-year-old family
Carolina
owned
looks legitimately good.
PMSI is proud to serve as the official pest control partner of the Hokies. We are always on the defense against general pests, mosquitoes, bed bugs, stink bugs, termites, wildlife, and even mold. For a free inspection, visit our website at mypmsi.com.
Vegas
That's
got it. Vegas surprises all got it right.
mypmsi.com.
What's a home? When you grew up, you didn't care if your house was small, if the curtains were old, or if you had to share a room with your brother and your guinea pig because they both smelled the
So
same.
they got it
You
right,
knew
maybe
things
it was
about
some,
home.
you
You're
know, or at
sneaking
least
in
them
bed
being
with
right.
mom
But
and dad.
Miami,
In the beaters when mom
that
makes you.
surprised me.
They hide the secret in the backyard. Even now, when you care
Major
about things like
surprise
square
or
footage
correction.
and building colors, you still want to buy a
UVA
home that
looks
gives you all the good
okay.
feelings of the
Yeah.
one
With
you
Armstrong
grew up in.
throwing for
You want a
400
home
yards
where
a
you
game.
walk in
But
the
just
door.
okay,
and say,
yeah.
"This is-
They got some.
it's the
It's
one."
weird to say, but they
more
got well, the running game still was terrible.
For more
They got some
info,
defensive
visit
issues.
NRP
It's like,
Gateway
just
Realty.
weird to say about the football team. Hit, who knows?
It's the Hokie House pregame show on your local radio station. We are ESPN Blacksburg. Andrew Alex, Tim Thomas, John McLaughlin, Dave Perks, Mike McDaniel joining us remotely, and of course, all of you listening to us on ESPN Blacksburg as well as StreamYard. So the Richmond Spiders in town today, and our producer Drew had a conversation with Bill Roth before the season started. It was like he was talking to a class, and Bill asked the class, guys, what do you think is the most important game of the season this year? What's the most must-win game? Everyone's like North Carolina, Notre Dame. Bill said no. The most important game to win is Richmond. You cannot lose to Richmond. So, John, I want to start with you. As a former player, coming off of the hype of the West Virginia game, with Notre Dame on the horizon, you had the Richmond Spiders sandwiched in between. Against these FCS teams, quieter crowd, much less fanfare. How do you, as a player, get up for a game like this?
Well, it's the maturity of the team, man. You have to treat every opponent the same. Doesn't matter if you're playing Notre Dame, doesn't matter if you're playing Richmond. You have to treat every opponent like you're going in there to dominate that opponent. So this game is very important, and I think it's going to show a lot about our team.
Indeed. Mike, I want to ask you, Justin Fuente, in the past, sub-Power 5 opponents have been an issue. Obviously, the glaring loss to Old Dominion, Liberty last year. Furman 2019, where you're down, 14-3, 14-7 at halftime, and the stadium empties. How do you judge this Richmond team as a team with potential to give Virginia Tech a game, I guess? Should fans be worried?
I don't think so. I mean, I think if you're worried about Richmond, you should be looking in the mirror and actually be worried about Virginia Tech. This is one of those games. I mean, like John just said, right? You got to treat every opponent the same if you're a player, and you got to go in with the same approach to each and every game you play. But some games are bigger than others, and you're coming. And I think what benefits Virginia Tech here is that Notre Dame is not immediately next Saturday, right? So you're not sandwiched between West Virginia and Notre Dame. You are technically, but at least you have a bye week in between. I would be a bit more worried about Virginia Tech's wherewithal with the players today if Notre Dame was next Saturday, right? Because you're coming off a big game on the road and then you're hosting one in a couple weeks. If that game was next Saturday, I'd be a bit more concerned. But Virginia Tech's got to play well today. And if Richmond gives the Hokies a game, it's more likely that Virginia Tech didn't play to their capability more than Richmond is a better team. I don't think anybody's arguing that Richmond's going to come in here and beat a better team today.
Tim, offensively, it doesn't seem like this team has been able to string a full, consistent game together. I think Richmond's an opportunity to show a little semblance of that. What are the goals for you in looking at this Virginia Tech offense that you can see today against Richmond that will give you more confidence going into Notre Dame and going into the heart of conference play?
Well, John mentioned earlier, I want to see the offense opened up, against in a game like Richmond. I want to see the passing game open up some. I want to see the misdirection, the read options, the jet sweep read options, all these things, especially in the running game first and foremost. I mean, I'm one who's defended the jet sweep. It was indefensible last week, some of the near side jet sweeps. It became predictable almost that they're going to go always to the near side, not the far side, which was a little confusing to me. But I want to see those misdirection, with the read option, the jet sweep read option, some of those, kind of double reverses and things like that in the running game, opening up, some better executed screens as well, and then stretching the ball down the field. I want to see this playbook open up. We saw it in the first half against North Carolina, and then they adjusted back to that in the fourth quarter against UNC as well after a poor third quarter, which helped them, finish that game off. And then they took, they slowly, a lot of those good misdirection read options kind of shrunk away against Middle Tennessee and then disappeared against West Virginia for really, in my mind, no good reason when they were working. So I want to see those things. Of course, sometimes, coaches nowadays, again, in a game like this, they don't want to reveal much of their hand, but it's not like there isn't tape of it out there. And if it works, it works. So I want to see the offense, I want to see a game called that's actually a very diverse offense and not, and not just run pass balance, but a diverse rushing attack.
Yeah, John, I want to ask you your opinion on this. Against North Carolina, the game plan was clear. Ball control, use pretty much all of the clock, late snaps, keep the ball out of Sam Howell's hands because we knew what he could do. Against Middle Tennessee State, the offense looks a little bit vanilla, but I think most fans and many analysts thought, well, they're kind of just hiding their hand from West Virginia, but they come out against West Virginia, and that offense looks vanilla once again. Is this the coaching staff kind of just playing to Burmeister's strengths? Has the playbook shrunk? Are they saving things for Notre Dame? What do you make of this?
I don't think they're saving anything. I just think we haven't seen a complete football team. We've seen some phases where offense is dominated, where some phases where defense is doing all right, special teams. We need to see all three phases of the game, a complete football game. So I think that's what it is. I don't think coaches are saving anything because, that's a little bit ridiculous that they'll try to save something for another opponent because, they got to play week in and week out. And it's a different game plan every week. So I do think we need to see a complete football game today.
Yeah, indeed. Mike, I want to ask you this. You've seen the conspiracy theories online about Braxton Burmeister, people saying he's injured. Obviously, in every RPO situation, in every read option that they ran, he hands the ball off last week. His greatest strength is with his legs. Do you buy into this notion that Burmeister might be a little banged up and the coaches are trying to protect him?
I mean, so obviously you'd rather have him healthy than not, but I think the biggest question here is not whether or not he's hurt, but whether or not the coaching staff is trying to keep him from getting hurt. Either way, the play calling has been, I don't want to say suspect, because I do think by and large the play calling has been pretty fine all year. I think it's been situationally where it's been an issue, and that's been Cornell. The biggest knock on Cornelson is the situational stuff. I think with Burmeister, what Virginia Tech is trying to do is keep him from getting hurt. So they're not calling a lot of designed read option plays. Justin Fuente was asked about in the postgame last weekend and then was asked about again in his media availability on Monday. And he said that there wasn't a time that came to mind in his head where Burmeister made the wrong read on a read option play, which tells me that, okay, that play at the end of the game where it looked like he could have kept it and scored, gone around the corner and scored by the goal line, that tells me that wasn't a designed read option play, that was run all the way. And I think Virginia Tech is calling a lot of that because they don't want Burmeister to get out into the open field on a lot of designed quarterback runs and take hits that he doesn't have to take. The issue with that is that you do run the risk of the offensive ceiling being limited when you take away one of Burmeister's biggest weapons, or the biggest weapon, his legs. So it's kind of a catch-22. Like, A, you don't want him to get hurt, and I get that because you're concerned about the depth behind him. But B, like if you're tailoring the play calling to make sure that he doesn't get hurt, I think you're limiting the ceiling of the offense because Burmeister is one of the most athletic players on the team. Everybody's talked about it. Everybody, talks about how fast he is and his ability in the open field. But we haven't seen a lot of it unless a passing play breaks down. He just takes off on his own.
Dave, I want to turn to you here. As a fan, as an alumni, as a resident of Blacksburg who pretty much makes it to every single one of these games year in and year out, the Richmond game probably not the one that you get to circle on that you tend to circle on the calendar. However, there's still football to be played. Outside of you going into the parking lot and drinking with your friends once this show is over, what do you need to see on the field today to make you walk away saying the game was a success and Dave Perks is more confident in Virginia Tech's ability to beat Notre Dame in a few weeks?
Well, I think it's what these guys have already said. I want to see more. I want to see some imagination. I want to see some, like if the situations aren't there, create them for yourselves. Like, make something happen. And I would love to see some big plays. I think this offense needs to break out a little bit. And if we can, get one or two big plays downfield, that starts to make you feel like, okay, well, all this that we've been hearing about this being the best passing attack that we've had in Fuente's time here, I haven't seen any evidence of that yet. But I would love to start seeing more of that today. But like they said, too, I think that starts with figuring out some more creative and different ways to get the run game started, whether it's, short passes, out on the flat and setting up screens and all of that stuff and just bringing all of this back to the table so that we can see, to John's point, a complete game. We just haven't seen that yet. And for me to be confident about the ability to prep for 2 weeks for a big game coming in Notre Dame, today could be part of that, right? Like use this. If you have all these tools at your disposal and you haven't used them yet and you're wondering how they're going to perform, let's see today. And then have that film for your own team to break down to see where you can get better to then, build on that going into a bigger game with Notre Dame.
Mike, the situational play calling in the red zone, the execution in the red zone, probably the biggest target of the fans' ire and really analysts' ire. I mean, I think Kirk Herbstreit said it on ESPN right after the game. Virginia Tech threw away an opportunity to win that game against West Virginia. 12 plays within the 5-yard line, no points produced out of them. How, if you're Virginia Tech, do you use this game as an opportunity to work on that red zone offense, work on that play calling? Is there changes that can be made in a week like this?
Yeah, I mean, it's not just in the red zone, it's everywhere. I mean, the team just has to execute better for all 4 quarters. We still haven't seen Virginia Tech play a complete game for 4 quarters yet this year, and we're in week 4. So it's really an execution thing. I mean, the play calling situationally was an issue last week, but execution I thought was a bigger issue, and execution plagued Tech throughout the entire game. And really, I think if you're going to make a list of issues that Virginia Tech had last week, I think play calling is like 3rd or 4th on that list. Virginia Tech had a lot of other problems that they had to sort out before you can point to play calling and say that was the reason why Virginia Tech lost the game.
Indeed. Timmy, and we're going to kind of around the circle on this one. A player that you want to see get some significant time and action today?
I think Jaden Payute's a guy you want to see continue to grow along. You're starting to see him play more. I think he's a guy you'd want to see. I think also Knox Kadum. That'd be a good sign if Knox Kadum's in the football game for where that game's at. And you need to get him and maybe even Taj Bulk a little playing time today as well. You need those quarterbacks to get more live reps. If you're so worried about Burmeister's health because you're not confident in the depth, what better way to develop those guys than get them the live reps that will make the difference? So you need to get Knox Kadum and a guy like Jaden Payute. I would say some defensive guys, but we saw against Middle Tennessee, Justin Hamilton worked in guys like Dean Ferguson, Keyshawn Artis in the first quarter. Hamilton's very comfortable with taking a chance and trying to work some of those backups in a lot earlier than you would think. So I would say it's more on the offensive side. Knox Kadum and Jaden Payute and those other freshman receivers, but especially Kadum. You want that backup quarterback in there to get some more reps. I mean, he might be the future after Burmeister anyway, him or Taj Bullock.
John, is there a player or a position group that you'd be really cued in on today that you want to see some more action from?
I want to see more from Caleb Smith. I think he showed last week that he has the ability to play football. I want to see us give him the ball more. I want to see if we can use him on some jet sweeps. I know everybody's a fan of that play, but maybe we can see him get around at the edge or get the ball out to him in the flats. Or I want to see more activity from him.
And a big game for Caleb Smith. Both of his parents, University of Richmond alumni, father played football there. Mike, one player you're cued in on.
Yeah, I mean, I all eyes for me today are on Burmeister. I just want to see him be a bit more comfortable in the downfield passing game. I think a lot of it comes down to letting the receivers work in the middle of the field, which is something that we saw a little bit in the second half against West Virginia. I want to see that a little bit more consistently this week, though.
And Dave, last one for you.
I think for me, it's a group. I want to see our running back room have a big game today. I think some consistency there. I think there was some maybe some trust issues with the ball going around a little bit. I'd love to see some direction coming out of that room after this game too.
Indeed. For me, I just want to see how this offensive line looks. Do not play Silas Yancey, but this is a group with depth. A lot of talk coming into the season. You had Johnny Jordan, who was an honorable mention All Big Ten guy. He was going to come into the fold, but they didn't want to move Hoffman from center. Size-wise, Jordan probably not big enough to play on the outside of that center position. Ultimately, if Mike is correct, Jordan will be at center tonight. Hoffman moved to guard, some switches at the tackle positions. Vance Weiss has been known to get creative here, and I'm really curious to see how he does it and which younger guys can step in, notably if he's healthy. Parker Clements, I think I would love to see what kind of depth we have at that tackle position behind Luke Tenuta and Silas Yancey. But hey, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to go around the ACC and see what else is going on in the conference. Chaos. It's the name of the game here in the ACC Coastal. That's the Hokie House pregame show on your local radio station. We are ESPN Blacksburg.
Rules in action. One of us that knows the rules.
UVA football.
All of us.
Oh boy. Who said anything about rules? We're making this up as we go.
I did watch a lot of it, yeah. I watched the first half and then
anything else we want.
Right listening to and then I turned on the first half.
With sports
Then I turned on a little second half too before. It was just like this game's over. In my mind. Well, I actually watched it to the end and then some other stuff. I even briefly turned on a little Fresno State. Actually, I watched a lot of Fresno State game.
I caught some of the Fresno State game. I saw the Liberty game and watched most of the UVA game last night.
Yeah, I didn't catch much of the UVA or the Liberty Syracuse game where they brought in they got the new Schrader kid from Mississippi State who played last night. And
I want to see is Georgia Tech UNC, man. That's gonna be it's gonna be a good one.
I think UNC's gonna blow them out.
Really?
I think they're gonna cover the 13.5. That's actually one of I really like UNC the way they're playing.
Yeah.
I think they've.
What do they play Clemson last
Blacksburg.
but
That party is at Hokie.
I think Clemson, North Carolina State. That's gonna be a dogfight.
This is what Clemson's offense
which I do think See, I'm just that game feels like it feels like it should be close to what we've seen, but it feels like also the game that Clemson just all of a sudden their offense wakens up.
Unwanted bugs sending your anxiety into overtime? This is Jay Tucker, Hokie alum and branch manager of Pest Management Services, Inc. As a 32-year-old family-owned and operated business, PMSI is proud to serve as the official pest control partner of the Hokies. We are always on the defense against general pests, mosquitoes, bed bugs,
They got a free tailgate spot too.
termites,
Right there.
For a free inspection, visit our website at ipmsi.com. That's ipmsi.com.
It's a great town too. Like all around it, I love that town.
Need to get rid of divisions. Just make it.
How can you help?
You play 2 teams every year.
I'll
you
make
rotate
sure the
everybody
property is
else.
taken care of.
Who would you take on? UVA and who?
Probably Miami.
Okay.
Maintaining the property is one of the main jobs.
I mean, like you look at Wake Forest and North Carolina, who are scheduling non-conference in-conference games because it's like why would we not play each other? We're right down the block from each other.
You could have
Clean filters.
and Wake Forest and a UNC that
Good
they do
property
have to play
management,
Notre Dame, but they might be 7-1.
Plumbing, electrical,
It's easy to envision
HVAC,
that being a
They can
huge
often get the
non-conference
repair
game.
done.
The biggest non-conference game from Wake Forest and North Carolina ever.
Hey, man, I we'll get to it in a second, but I really like what Wake's doing.
I don't
It's
know why Paul says it. I don't get it. The guy is built
What's up, Bruins fans? For sport or life, keeping yourself in shape can be one of the best things you can do. Hi, this is Kevin Bowen, owner of Blacksburg Boxing Fitness. Whether you're trying to get in shape for the upcoming season, ramp up your game for your current sport, or just get in a little better shape for life, Blacksburg Boxing Fitness can help you be your best in 2021. For a full schedule of our classes and our open gym hours, or to sign up for a 3-week trial, visit our website, blacksburgboxingfitness.com. Blacksburg Boxing Fitness, because everybody's
QB1. Yeah. He was on that Netflix show, yeah.
I haven't watched that, but yeah. We got they all Steph Walker kid. In the backfield now they still got Will Smith, but now that Ellison kid as well.
Right. They look good. They look good last time.
Kids on that team too.
It's the Hokie House pregame show on your local radio station. We are ESPN Blacksburg. Andrew Alex, Dave Perks, John McLaughlin, Tim Thomas, Mike McDaniel, Head of Security Matt Oberholzer, and all of you. 866-961-1430, the number to text for the Main Street Pharmacy text line, 866-961-1430. Gentlemen, let's go around the ACC and start with what happened last night. Mike, you and I had a conversation. I think we had multiple conversations this week about how you really liked how well-rounded of a team that Wake Forest and Dave Clawson brought out there. It seems like UVA is a little bit more of one-trick pony, and that one-trick pony is on the offensive side of the ball. That defense flat out can't stop anyone. Stock check on both of these teams going forward.
Well, I mean, I think Virginia's defense is definitely an issue. So that was something that going into the game last night, I was really curious to see, because it's one thing to have North Carolina hang 59 on you. It's another thing for Virginia's defense to be consistently bad. And we hadn't really seen that through the first few games for UVA because of the opponents that they played. But yeah, I think the defense is an issue. They honestly look a lot like Virginia Tech's defense did last year. Like, they're filling incorrect gaps in the running game. They're getting burned in the passing game. They can't generate a consistent pass rush. It's been really bad. Offensively, Brandon Armstrong's really good, and he's going to have to just carry the entire team on his back, essentially. They don't run the ball very well outside of Armstrong, so he's kind of the whole team. Wake Forest, on the other hand, the social media reaction last night was like, oh my God, Wake Forest, are they good? It's like, yeah, they're good. Like, they brought back a veteran group on offense and defense and special teams. They had a lot of returning production. You have a veteran quarterback in Sam Hartman. Christian Beal-Smith's a really good running back. You got weapons at receiver, and they're always well coached. Like, Dave Clawson always has this team well coached. Now, there's a defined ceiling at Wake Forest because of the talent they're able to bring in, and there are going to be some games year over year where you look at Wake Forest and you're like, you know what, they just don't necessarily have enough talent to win that football game. But they're always well coached, so they rarely get blown out. And in the ACC this year, I mean, we'll talk about Clemson, I'm sure, in a second, but Clemson's offense has some issues on the offensive line. And that Wake Forest-Clemson game here in November, Clemson could be in a much better spot by then offensively, certainly. And they definitely have more talent than Wake Forest. But, that game becomes a little bit more interesting if Clemson continues to struggle on offense. And that game today against NC State will tell us a lot. But I think Wake Forest is, has potential to be one of the best teams in the ACC, and I think that was the case before the season too, just because of who they were returning and how well coached they are.
John, you mentioned that you were really excited for the Georgia Tech North Carolina game today. Georgia Tech, a great showing defensively, at least, against Clemson. At this point in this program rebuild, because back when you were in school, Georgia Tech ran the Paul Johnson triple option that Virginia Tech just couldn't seem to figure out. Where do you think the Yellow Jackets are in this basically program revamp that they've done since Paul Johnson's firing?
I mean, I think it's going to take some time for them to develop a normal offense, I would say. It is kind of weird not seeing them run that triple option, as a player that used to play them. But I do like the direction they're in. I like the fight against Clemson last week. They went in there. The defense showed up. They didn't score as many points as I like, but they did show some fight.
Dave, looking around the ACC for a few weeks here, I mean, it's been chaotic. Your favorite team, the Miami Hurricanes, they've struggled. Pitt beats Tennessee and then comes back and loses to Western Michigan. What's been the biggest surprise of the year in the conference, and how do you as a fan look at this information that we've been fed through 3 weeks and project that forward onto Virginia Tech's schedule? How does that make you feel about the team's chances going forward?
Well, I mean, I think the biggest thing that really doesn't affect our schedule is just the lack of production at Clemson right now. I mean, we're so used to that narrative of they just reload
Just
every year,
steamroll through the conference. Yeah.
So that has been like non-development has been, I think, one of the developments within the conference that is surprising. But I'll say too, like as far as what affects our schedule, and even just the rivalry is, I've been surprised the last couple of weeks at just how poorly UVA has executed and played. I think, I wasn't expecting them to be great, but I did think that, a lot of the hype around Armstrong and some of the tools that he may or may not have around him was it was worth listening to, but it doesn't seem to be panning out.
Timmy, based on what you've seen from UVA, because Dave's right, the hype around Armstrong it's been almost national at this point after a couple of weeks. And I think some fans of Virginia Tech that might have had UVA sharpied in as a win at the end of the season might be starting to second guess that. Where is your assessment on UVA compared to where it was prior to the season? Does Armstrong basically cancel out those defensive inefficiencies for you?
I think UVA is higher than I had at the beginning of the season. I think Brendan Armstrong has progressed a lot as a passer. He was very much a run-first guy, and he is, to UVA's credit, they have developed him very well. And, he's got well over thousands of yards, not thousands, but he's got like 1,300 yards, I think, already on the season, at least passing. It's one of the unexpected developments, I think, of the season so far. The defense is worrying, which is surprising because I thought going in, the offense was going to be the issue, especially because they can't run the football, which they still can't run the football, but they're throwing it around. And they have a bunch of different guys. Wicks looks like an emerging guy. Woods has proven to be another. Once again, UVA found a tight end in the transfer portal, which if there's a position that's not easy to find outside of in-house, I feel like tight end might be up there on the list of positions in all of college football. You don't see a JUCO tight end or anything like that. And UVA's found 2 in 2 years, which I got to give Bronco or whoever else credit for finding that. So I think the stock is up for them, absolutely. And I think they're an interesting team in this Coastal picture. They're in the hole, losing to North Carolina, who I think right now may be the best team in the Coastal, which good news for Tech. That game's already come and gone, and Tech's 1-0 in the Coastal. Great advantage to have. But UVA, I think, might be the third best team in the Coastal right now. I think I'd probably put them third over Miami right now. And it's partly to their credit because you look at the 2 games they've lost, it's to a ranked North Carolina, and it's to a Wake Forest team that should be ranked. Now, it was 20 points.
Probably they'll have a serious chance of being ranked going into next week. A big national television blowout. I think Wake Forest will be ranked next week.
It's a weird part of the season where you're starting to get, they're one of the last teams that can jump in, and before we start seeing the churn of teams that we already saw in the top 25 who fell out come back in, i.e. Virginia Tech here soon.
Indeed. Hopefully. Mike, from your perspective, North Carolina, obviously the offense flops, mostly due to a very good defensive performance for Virginia Tech in week 1. They come back and they drop 59 points on UVA. They have Georgia Tech today. Is this a game where you expect North Carolina to win in a blowout? Can Georgia Tech be competitive? And in your eyes, despite the one loss early in the season, is North Carolina still the favorite in the Coastal for you?
Yeah, I think North Carolina is the favorite in the Coastal. I picked Miami before the season. I was totally wrong. It happens to everybody. Like, we all go through that phase where we're like, yeah, Miami could win the Coastal, and then they don't. I was wrong, so that's going to be incorrect. They're terrible.
We need to change Miami's back to Miami's right back where they were.
Yeah. Miami being back is 7-5 every year. But yeah, I think North Carolina is likely the favorite. They have the most talent in the Coastal, and going into the opener, I picked Virginia Tech to win the football game, but it was more because of A, the atmosphere in Blacksburg, but B, because North Carolina had a lot of playmakers they were trying to break in to week 1. And it's hard to go on the road with a bunch of guys who haven't done it before and go play in that environment against a really veteran defense. And I always said I thought Carolina is a team that would get much better as the year went on, and that if Virginia Tech played Carolina in like mid-October, early November, I would be picking the Tar Heels. And, we'll see today against Georgia Tech. Certainly North Carolina looked great offensively last weekend. Defense still has some issues to iron out for sure. But it's going to take Carolina playing a very disciplined game on both sides of the football. And a lot of it's going to have to do with whether or not Georgia Tech can deploy the same game plan they had against Clemson, where they sit on the football and drag it out and give themselves a good chance to win and execute well when they have opportunities. If they do that, I think Georgia Tech can keep this game close. But Carolina's got the firepower to definitely blow Georgia Tech out if Georgia Tech makes a couple of mistakes. So interested to see where the Tar Heels are today, because they're playing a much better defense in Georgia Tech than the one they played last week against UVA.
John, I want to turn to you on this one because you've been in locker rooms in this college football atmosphere time and time before. Miami, as Mike mentioned, this was a team that was, number 15 in the country coming into the season, a team that many people expected to compete in the ACC Coastal Division, compete maybe on a national level, and there were plenty of good reasons to believe so. I believe they brought back 19 starters overall from a team that went 8-2 last year. They've come out flat. They get crushed by Alabama. They narrowly escape Appalachian State in Miami. And then they let Michigan State, a team that really struggled last season, walk into Coral Gables and really hand it to them. How does a team take a step back like that with so much veteran talent returning?
Well, every year Miami always have hype coming in, rightfully so. That the history in that program. I think the polls are automatically going to put Miami in there in the top 25. So you never really know until about week 3 what this team is capable of doing. So right now they're struggling right now. So it's like do or die for them right now. They got a great quarterback. They do have great players on defense. We just need to see more from that team, man. They don't look good right now in the ACC.
Tim, Clemson, North Carolina State. We saw that. What have we seen from Clemson's offense? Nothing. Basically, we haven't seen anything from Clemson's offense outside of that South Carolina State game, but that's a low-level FCS team. Clemson has just rolled through the ACC the past couple of seasons. There hasn't been that one slip-up game for them. On the road, in Raleigh, this is a team the media picked to finish second in the ACC Atlantic. It seems to be their stoutest competition. Does the offense need to get right in order to escape this game with a win? Do you expect North Carolina State to really give them a run for it?
They do to some extent, but that defense for Clemson is legitimately really, really, really good. They've returned everybody, and it shows. I know they're a little banged up, but that Venables defense is really good. It's been one of the weird things because you look at DT Uiagalelei, former 5-star top prospect, top recruit in the country. He filled in for Trevor Lawrence in that Notre Dame game and put up insane numbers in that game against the Fighting Irish. I mean, the kid can play. I don't know what is, it's the skill positions. They're just lacking something. I think the offensive line's had some issues maybe. It's bizarre. And it feels like, a lot of people, we're all jumping on, all right, this is the day NC State's going to take them down. That's it for Clemson. This is going to happen. Part of me thinks this is going to be the day that this Clemson offense maybe just breaks out and gets out of that funk. They're starting to be talked down to a lot, and there's a lot of talent on that Clemson offense. It would not surprise me if Clemson puts up like 30 or so and cruises in Raleigh, and that defense holds NC State to like 10 or 14. I mean, that's the NC State team that went to Mississippi State, which I don't think has got that great of a defense, not a great SEC team, and lost 24-10. So I'm not buying NC State. I think this could be the day that Clemson can finally get it going. Plus, we've seen it before. They have this game, it seems like, every year. Sometimes they lose it at home, but they seem to have a game every year where they kind of are in a funk at home. I think the Boston College game last year was one of those, for example, where they're just off that day and they just have to scrap and get a win. Now that they had it, they've heard all the talk. This is a hyped up game. This is one of the bigger games left on their schedule. I think Clemson, this might be a surprise of the day, and Clemson might put a big one on NC State.
I'm interested to see what all of you guys have to say about North Carolina State's chances when we pick our games after the break on the Hokie House pregame show on your local radio station. We are ESPN Blacksburg.
All right, gentlemen. Baseball, football, hockey, and basketball.
You're listening to ESPN Blacksburg, where sports rule.
You grew up.
Do they? Yeah, they got a little beef going on. I don't know if you remember years ago.
I saw that.
Yeah, laptop. Yeah, North Carolina State coach said
licking the beaters while mom makes chocolate cake, playing hide and seek in the backyard. Even now, when you care about things like square footage and roofing colors, you still want to buy a home that gives you all the
And they weren't even playing North Carolina State at the time. They were playing somebody else.
walk in the door and say, "This is it. This is the one."
We know more about the heart and soul of hope. For more info, visit NRC Gateway Realty.
What sets your local pharmacy apart from the big box stores? How about the fact that your pharmacist and the staff knows you by name and greets you with a smile? How about the fact that if you have a question, you can ask your pharmacist without waiting for us? How about the fact that they'll bring your prescription downtown with no charge? If these sound like great reasons to use your local pharmacy, then Main Street Pharmacy in Blacksburg would love to transfer all of your prescriptions.
I'll give you some
About
history.
today at MSBlacksburg.com. Main Street Pharmacy.
Year 1 and 2, we would pick scores of our game. Like we would pick the winner, and we would pick our winners.
What's up, Bruins
across the league,
fans?
and then
For
we
sport
would
or
pick
life,
our
keeping
game
yourself
and
in
the
shape
score.
can be one of the best things you can do.
And every
Hi, this
time
is
we
Kevin
thought it
Bowen,
was
owner
gonna
of
be a
Blacksburg
blowout,
Boxing and Fitness.
who would
Whether
win?
you're trying to get in shape
So
for the
then we
upcoming
banned
season,
calling
ramp up your
scores
game
out here on the show. Ride and die though, because he probably was guaranteed winning. Great.
For a full schedule of our classes
Here we
and our
go.
open gym hours, or to sign up for a 2-week trial, visit our website, blacksburgboxingfitness.com.
Okay, luckily we only have 4, so.
That was a great time for that. They got a senior year.
Over 20 years, the law office of Patrick King
That was the
River resource for honest, accessible, and knowledgeable legal guidance.
Basketball program.
With services ranging from real estate law to wills and trusts, Patrick will have the skills and experience to help you navigate whatever legal issues will arise in your life. So come to a client center, community involved
This
law,
week, right,
so we
yeah,
can
right.
expedite your
I mean,
on Wednesday when people get bored in the middle of the week.
there are some people who have built up these massive egos on Twitter. Yeah, that is just like, you need to get a life. I even said, I think, on the show yesterday, briefly, like, I was like, I got into my Hokie Twitter. Like, briefly, I was like, it's crazy. You just need to get off Twitter, get outside, get a life, go to high school. Exactly. Yeah. I went to Montana a couple weeks ago with some friends, went to Salem.
See some Gunnar Givens action.
Just even go watch football. Right. Like, there's not good football. Yeah,
Are you looking for the right dental office for you and your family? At New River Dental Associates, we want you to have the healthiest and best looking smile possible.
Wow, the public's been hammering Richmond. It was at minus 35 Virginia Tech. Now it's at minus 29.
Dental implants and everything in between. We participate with the most popular insurance providers, including the dental plan for Montgomery County Public Schools. Choose your neighborhood family dental provider. Choose New River Dental Associates. For more information,
Smoke some weed.
It might be good for you.
It's the Hokie House pregame show on your local radio station. We are ESPN Blacksburg. Andrew Alex, Tim Thomas, Dave Perks, John McLaughlin, Mike McDaniel, head of security, Matt Oberholzer, and all of you. 866-961-1430. The number to text, 866-961-1430. All right, gentlemen, rapid fire around the ACC. Boston College in Missouri in Boston.
Boston College.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Missouri.
I'm definitely going Boston College.
Mikey?
Missouri.
I'm going with Missouri as well. Still need to see something out of this Boston College team following the injury to Phil Dracovic. Clemson and North Carolina State.
I'll go with Clemson.
Yeah, I'm going Clemson.
I'm going North Carolina State here.
I think I'm going to go NC State as well. Mikey?
I'm on Clemson. NC State couldn't run the ball against Mississippi State. If they couldn't do that, I don't think they run the ball on Clemson. Clemson's offense doesn't have to be great to cover a spread today either. I mean, it could be like 24-10 they cover, so give me Clemson.
All right, Timmy, Louisville and Florida State.
Louisville, big.
Louisville.
I bet Florida State money line. Line doesn't make any sense. Give me Florida State.
Oh, you're scaring me there, Mikey. I'm going to go Louisville big. It's too good to be true. It probably is. But, guys, America's game of the week. The Kansas Jayhawks in Durham, North Carolina to face the Duke Blue Devils. Who you got?
Who cares? Duke, I guess.
I'm going Duke here.
I'm going to go Kansas. I don't know why I think this, but Kansas has actually got a good coach now, and I am not buying Duke.
DDD, Tim. Don't doubt Duke. Mike, what do you got, and where are you watching? Do you have like a big TV setup? Are you having like a tailgate party for the game?
I'm gonna have multiple TVs going, and Kansas Duke's going on the big one, of course.
Of course.
Give me Duke. I think Kansas covers though.
Don't doubt Duke, gentlemen. I'm going Duke. North Carolina, Georgia Tech.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Carolina on that one.
I'm gonna go with Georgia Tech, man. I want to see what they got tonight.
North Carolina, big. They put up 50 plus.
Carolina, close game though.
I say Carolina by about 10. All right, last game of the day, gentlemen. I'm assuming we're all going to pick Miami and Pittsburgh over New Hampshire and Central Connecticut State, respectively. All right, cool. Last game, Virginia Tech, Richmond. Dave Perks, are you willing to pick Richmond?
No.
Jonathan.
Virginia Tech big, a dominant performance today.
Virginia Tech, will they cover? I don't know.
Mike.
Hokies.
The public is loving Richmond right now. It went from 35 to 29 in like 2 days.
Hokies big.
And I will pick the Hokies as well. That's going to do it for us. Big thanks to John McLaughlin for coming out today. Big thanks to Matt Oberholzer, head of security, Dave Perks, Tim Thomas, Mike McDaniel. Thanks to the good folks over at StreamYard. Everyone enjoy the game. Today we'll be back for Notre Dame 3 hours before the game, a big one. Probably in front of a little more lively of a crowd than we have here this morning at Hokie House, and we're looking forward to it. It's the Hokie House pregame show on your local radio station. We are ESPN Blacksburg.
Thanks for coming out, man.
ESPN Blacksburg, 93.1, 810, 97.1, online.